Happy Friday, everyone, and thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, we're going to talk a lot of Arizona football here, some Arizona football recruiting, what it means, a big commit, a lot of stuff, get caught up on a lot of stuff because obviously we've been talking a ton of Arizona, Pac-12, Big 12, so let's get started here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, like I said, we've been talking a lot about conference realignment, conference expansion, all of that fun stuff, and we all know that it is fun stuff. But also, it's time to talk a little bit about Arizona football recruiting, what's gone on, get you all caught up with that. Now, first, Damon Williams, big-time quarterback prospect out of Phoenix, has committed to the University of Arizona. What else to say about him? Again, four-star kid, best quarterback in the state. Yes, he's a little bit undersized, but when you watch him, he can really make plays with his feet. He can make plays with his arm. The passing game is developing for sure. But talking with a couple people from South Point who played him last year, they said that he was the best kid that they've gone against and the best kid they've seen in a long time. And so you got to certainly take that. You certainly got to take that. Now, when it comes to what he will see when he hits the field, there's a couple different things. He's probably, by the way, I got to cut myself shaving, so I got a little bit of there's a couple different things that I think you can expect to see from him on the field right there. And the first thing is that when he enters this quarterback room, it's going to be him. It's going to be Noah Fafita. It's going to be Braden Dorman. It's going to be those dudes right there. That's not a bad quarterback room at all. Again, I think JDL probably moves on at the end of the season. I can't say that for a fact, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me in the least if JDL does move on because, again, he's I don't know that he's an NFL player, but at the same time, I don't view him necessarily as a player who is who's going to benefit from another year. Again, he'll have been a senior this past year. Maybe he comes back for a super senior year. I don't really see it, and I think the main reason I don't see it is that I think JDL, and this is not a bad thing at all, but I think he's also kind of the guy that has a little bit of a shelf limit. We've all known those people in life. You both get a lot out of it from each other, but at the same point, you also know that it's going to be a little bit of there'll probably come a time when it's best for both sides to move on. And again, that's not really a bad thing. That's just kind of, as we call it, the circle of life. But you look at that quarterback room then. You're going to have two short guys. You're going to have Noah Fafita at about 5'7", 5'8". Then you're going to have Damon Williams at 5'10". Then you're going to have Braden Dorman at about 6'5", and that's going to be a very, very fun little quarterback room right there. Now, again, it's unproven for sure, but I think we can also sit here and state that there's a lot of talent there, and you would rather have a lot of talent. You wouldn't have a lot of talent there in the past when there's been some teams that let's be honest. Where you had some walk-on players. You had basically a scholarship player, and then you had Adam Austin, and that's no disrespect to Adam Austin. We very much like Adam Austin on this show, but all these guys are capable. I'm guessing that Noah Fafita is going to get the first crack at it for a variety of reasons. First of all, he's turned out to be pretty good. Now, again, you certainly need to see that on the field. But he's turned out to be pretty good. He's looked pretty good during this process. So I think I don't want to say he's earned it because he hasn't, but he's got a big arm. He can move around really well. He sees the field very well as well. So all of those things are kind of working in his benefit right there. So again, I think Noah Fafita is a very, very good bet to get that at least that first crack right there. Plus, you got to remember too, and I know this is not, you got to. I apologize about that. I did not see that coming. Internet's been a little wacky. So, anyways, I'll put the commercial break there. But the thing that you got to remember though about about Noah Fafita though also is that from Servite, California, you brought in Kean Burnett, you brought in T-Mac, you brought in Jacob Manu. There's a little bit to be said about, paying back a little bit of the loyalty. And I have no problem with that. That's society. That's life. I know a lot of people say, well, it should be all an even playing field. Totally get it. But if all things are equal or being close to equal, you're going to go with the guy that maybe meant a little bit more at the beginning. Then let's talk about Braden Dorman. Braden Dorman at about 6'4", 6'5", big arm, traditional pocket passer, a dude who is just able to make a lot of different plays out there. Very impressed by what he can do. And quite frankly, I think that he could be the one with the biggest long-term upside out of all these players. But again, he got here early, which is obviously a good thing. But when you get here early, it's also you're also going to maybe look a little bit overwhelmed at first. But that's fine because, again, the main thing is that you want to get in here and you want to get things going early. You want things to get going early because everybody's going to take some lumps. And you've seen that. The guys who are able to get on campus and start playing at an early pace, they kind of have the leg up on the competition right there. I mean, I hate to just say it like that, but they kind of have the leg up right there. And that's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. It just is the way it is. Now, I think with Arizona right there, the one thing that you also have to look at is Damon Williams saying, where can I fit into this quarterback room? And there's every opportunity. Again, I think Noah Fafita probably gets the first crack at it. I think Noah Fafita deserves to get the first crack at it. But Damon Williams is going to be right there. And Jedd Fisch has shown one thing. Jedd Fisch is going to play young players. He's not going to jump away from playing guys that he believes should be out there and should be able to play. He's played a lot of young guys from day one. You look at Big Jonah. You look at Wendell Moe. You look at T-Mac. You look at on the defensive side of the ball, Jacob Manu. If you can play, Jedd Fisch going to put you out there on the field. And I think that's one thing that Jedd Fisch has shown. And I think that's very much to Jedd Fisch's compliment as well, that he feels comfortable putting his best dudes out there on the field. And again, tip of the cap, salute emoji to Jedd Fisch right there. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about what this means then from an in-state recruiting perspective, because it means a lot. But first, we need to talk about LinkedIn. All right, here's the deal with LinkedIn. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege is where it's at for everything. Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Everybody has known somebody that has gotten a job through LinkedIn. I know somebody, you know somebody. You might, if you're cool, you might even know somebody that's hired. You might even know somebody that's hired somebody through LinkedIn, and that's where I think it's also very cool stuff. Now, a couple things that we also need to keep in mind, though, when it comes to LinkedIn and how cool all of this is that employers, this is the first place they go. So again, check it out, LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Check it out. Okay, now, let's chat a little bit about what this means in state. Now, Jedd Fisch said that he was going to recruit in state and that he was going to recruit at a massive level. And he's so far he's shown that he's going to do that. You look at the players that he's gotten in state. Deuce Davis is going to be one of those defensive linemen that is going to be a problem from day one. I mean, not from day one, but by the time he's a junior, an upperclassman, your Arizona's going to be ready to rock and roll with him. And not only is Arizona going to be able to rock and roll with him, he's also going to be flanked by some pretty good pass rushers as well. He's also going to be flanked by some good pass rushers as well. And I think that he's going to be a big time player. Now the next thing is with another player, Genesis Smith. I expect Genesis Smith to play, and I expect Genesis Smith to play very early this year. So there's two in-state guys right there. Then obviously last year or earlier this year, even though it's for 24-25, you bring in, you bring in Elijah Rushing, you bring in Keona Wilhite, that helps as well. So Jedd Fisch has done a nice little job recruiting in state. Factor in Damon Williams is probably the best in-state quarterback with Dylan Raiola moving on, and all of a sudden, it's you got a pretty nice little pretty nice little angle avenue right there. So again, this is big because again, Arizona is one of the most underrated states in the country when it comes to producing high school football players. And not only is it one of the most underrated in the country, you could make the case that it's probably a top 10. You got Texas, you got Florida, you got California, you got probably Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia. But after those schools, you start looking around and Arizona comes up pretty. And again, a lot of that talent is based out of Phoenix. And for the longest time, even when Dick Tomey was here, Arizona wasn't able to get kids out of Phoenix. Out of Chandler. You were able to get kids out of Phoenix, but you weren't able to get kids out of Chandler. And not only were you not able to get kids out of Chandler, they weren't even looking at you. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now. One thing that we also need to talk about, though, is what the future is then, because kids like playing with other really good players. They like seeing the stars. They like seeing all of that. Everybody knows that. So when you like playing with the stars, you like playing it, it looks very, very cool right there if you have a group of players that are, for lack of a better term, are 5-star players because you like being around 5-star players. Everybody remembers the cool kids in class and how people wanted to be like the cool kids. Well, the cool kids are 5-star prospects right there. That's just kind of the way they are, and that's, I think, the way that it's going to be right there. Now, a couple things that we also need to talk about is where Arizona then falls in the pecking order of in-state, because right now, Kenny Dillingham, I like the hire of Dilly. I think the big thing, though, that you got to do at ASU is you got to want to be there. And if you don't want to be there, then I think that's going to show very, very quickly. It's a place without a ton of support, and not only does it not have a ton of support, it has a group where it has a group of guys who I think basically just tolerate sports. So Jedd Fisch is coaching for basically where we're at. Jedd Fisch is kind of doing the basically get everybody in there, and we'll see how everything works. One thing that I do think that Fisch has done a very, very good job of, though, is selling that message. You watch Kenny Dillingham, and the one thing about Kenny Dillingham is that he's still trying to get his feet, but he definitely wants to be like Jedd Fisch. You can tell from the tweets, you can tell from how he follows things that he wants to be like Jedd Fisch, and that is a good thing because, again, there weren't coaches at ASU that wanted to be like Kevin Sumlin so again, that's a good thing, but it's good to be hip. And getting 4-star kids means a lot to other 4 or 5-star kids because just like in high school, how the cool kids generally congregated together, the 4 and the 5-star kids like being around each other, and that's going to be a very cool. That's a very cool thing, and honestly, stars matter. And not only do stars matter, it's a big, big deal to have players that want to be at the University of Arizona. It just is. And that's kind of been the way that it is, and that's going to continue to be the way it is for pretty much the foreseeable future. Now, let's talk a little bit about Big 12 recruiting and how this. I don't believe that being in the Big 12 is going to negatively impact Arizona at all. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to help. Here's why. Everybody keeps talking about losing that California base. I get all of that stuff. Totally understand. But still, UCLA and SC are gone. They're off to the Big Ten. They are gone. They're not coming back. So that playing in front of friends and family in Southern California isn't really an option anymore. Then you also have up north. I don't even know the Cal is going to continue football or continue athletics. I think that they would like to get rid of it, honestly. And with Stanford, I don't know how committed they are to sports. Keep in mind, Jared Haas is still there, and Jared Haas has been awful for 8 years, and there's no appetite to get rid of him. So there's that in play as well. But so you're not really, the California aspect isn't what it is without the LA schools. What does this do with the Big 12? This opens up Texas, I think, in more of a big way for you. Because again, as you all know, Texas is loaded. The one thing about Texas that I always find fascinating is a 3-star in Texas a lot of times is a 4-star somewhere else. We'll talk about what that exactly is in a second on the other side, but keep it locked on Wildcats. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit about what it means, what Big 12 recruiting means for Arizona. And honestly, with the way that Jedd Fisch and this staff are ready, the way that Jedd Fisch and staff are locked in, they're going to be able to recruit anywhere. And it just goes to show you, too, the value of wanting it. Coaches that want to be there, coaches that kids can cut through the BS. Kids know what the deal is and, who wants to be there, who doesn't. Fisch has an entire staff of hip recruiters outside of Chuck Cecil, who, Chuck Cecil's a legend. I get all that. But up and down the right, from Pow Pow to Dwayne Walker, to Kevin Cummings. This is a dynamic young staff here. And it's very interesting because, like Jedd Fisch said, if you're going to coach at the University of Arizona, you need to be able to, you're going to be able to recruit, because you don't have built-in advantages like some of the other schools where you have a natural huge fan base to be able to choose from. So one thing about it is that Arizona's kind of in the same spot where you'll be able to recruit California, but you'll also be able to recruit Texas as well. And not only that, I think the one thing about Texas and California is that if you're good, you're going to be able to get good players. You got to win. Look at it this way: all coaches are generally able to recruit a little bit coming in because they sell the hype angle. When you sell the hype angle, it makes things a lot easier for you. And by selling the hype angle, I mean that we got something new here, we got something new and fresh. But if you don't win games, that hype angle goes away, because then it just starts looking like empty promises. What Jedd Fisch was able to do was win 1 game in year 1. He won 5 games this previous year. And if you can get into that 7-win, realm, then you're in a pretty good spot, because you're able to sell. Not only is it fun here, but it's also a pretty cool spot to be able to. It's also a pretty able spot to get your own, set your own legacy. Because, keep in mind, Arizona football is proud, but at the same time, Arizona football doesn't have a legacy like the basketball program does. And not only does it not have like the basketball program does, that's waiting to be put. You've had really good players come through here. You've had some really good seasons, some top 5, top 10 seasons, but there hasn't been kind of that sustained long-term success. And I think with Jedd Fisch, that's what you're hoping he can do. And it also just goes to show you, too, the power of want to. If you have a coach that wants to do all this and embraces it, there's a good chance they're going to be successful. And what I mean by that is it's very simple. Kevin Sumlin didn't want to be here, and at a place where you don't want to be and you're just collecting a check in this environment, it's going to be difficult for you to be able to win games. Jedd Fisch wants to be here. He's got a staff that wants to be here, and the administration has given everything that he's wanted to. He's talked about how the administration has been top-notch, about how not only has it been top-notch, they've been able to give him everything he wants. All right. This coming week, we're going to have a lot more to talk about with Big 12, Pac-12 expansion, obviously. We've talked a ton about that throughout the week. The first thing that I wanted to do, I was remiss, though, in talking about Damon Williams, because that's obviously a very impactful commitment for the University of Arizona. And what it basically means on the field, it's a big kudo on the field, off the field, you name it. So that's kind of where we're at with that. But as always, you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and we will talk with you on Monday. We'll talk with you on Monday. Keep in mind, Pac-12 football is here. Arizona football is here. Day in, day out. Embrace the grind. That's why we're here. And as always, thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Have a great weekend, and we will be back with you tomorrow or on Monday.